Margaret Sullivan is 68 years old. She lives alone in Portland, Oregon. On March 15, 2024, her daughter Sarah comes to visit. Sarah finds her mother unconscious on the bathroom floor, empty medication bottles scattered around her. Sarah calls 911. Paramedics rush Margaret to the hospital. She survives. But when Sarah asks her mother why she did it, Margaret says something strange. "He loved me. I know he loved me." Sarah asks, "Who, Mom? Who loved you?" Margaret says, "Nathan, my fiancé." Sarah is confused. "You don't have a fiancé." Margaret starts crying. "Yes, I do. We were going to get married. He gave me a ring." Sarah looks around the house. There's no ring. She checks her mother's bank statements. Over the past 6 months, Margaret has withdrawn $47,000 in cash. Small amounts, $2,000 here, $5,000 there, $10,000 there, all gone. Sarah calls the police. They investigate. They find a man named Nathan Cole. He's 34 years old. He has a criminal record: fraud, identity theft, targeting elderly women. The police arrest Nathan. But when they search his apartment, they find something disturbing. 8 engagement rings. All cheap, all identical, and a notebook with names. Margaret Sullivan is just one name on a list of 12. So here's the question. Did Nathan ever love Margaret? Or was it always just about the money? And why does Margaret still believe he loved her, even after everything? This is the story of an elderly woman, a charming con artist, and a love that was never real. Margaret Ann Sullivan was born in Seattle, Washington in 1956. She married her husband Robert in 1978. They had 2 children, Sarah, born in 1980, and Michael, born in 1983. Robert worked as an accountant. Margaret worked as a librarian. They lived a quiet, comfortable life in Portland. They weren't wealthy, but they were stable. They paid their mortgage. They saved for retirement. They took modest vacations. In 2019, Robert was diagnosed with lung cancer. He fought for 2 years, but in June 2021, he passed away at the age of 67. Robert left Margaret well taken care of. There was life insurance. There was the house fully paid off. There were retirement savings. In total, Margaret inherited approximately $250,000. But money couldn't fill the emptiness Robert left behind. Margaret was 65 when Robert died. Her children had their own lives. Sarah lived 2 hours away with her husband and 2 teenage kids. Michael lived in California. They called Margaret regularly. They visited on holidays. But day to day, Margaret was alone. She tried to stay busy. She volunteered at the library where she'd worked for 30 years. She joined a book club. She took walks in the park. But the loneliness was overwhelming. Margaret's friends told her she should consider dating again. "You're still young," they said. "You deserve companionship." But Margaret felt old. She looked in the mirror and saw wrinkles, gray hair, age spots. Who would want her? That's the mindset Margaret had when she met Nathan Cole. It was September 2023. Margaret was at the public library, returning some books. She was in the fiction section, browsing for something new to read. A young man approached her. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, dark hair, nice smile. He looked to be in his early 30s. "Excuse me," he said. "I couldn't help but notice you're looking at mysteries. Do you like that genre?" Margaret was surprised that someone was talking to her. "Oh, yes," she said. "I've always enjoyed a good mystery." The man smiled. "Me too. Have you read anything by Agatha Christie lately?" They talked for a few minutes about books. The man introduced himself as Nathan Cole. He said he was new to Portland, had just moved there for work. He was an IT consultant. Nathan was charming. He listened when Margaret spoke. He asked questions about her life. He seemed genuinely interested. Before they parted ways, Nathan said, "This was really nice. Would you like to get coffee sometime? I don't know many people in Portland yet." Margaret hesitated. This young man wanted to have coffee with her? It seemed strange. But Nathan seemed sincere, and Margaret was lonely. "Sure," she said, "that would be nice." They exchanged phone numbers. Nathan called Margaret 2 days later. They met at a small cafe near Margaret's house. They talked for 2 hours. Nathan told Margaret about his life. He said he'd grown up in Ohio. His parents had both passed away. He didn't have siblings. He'd been married once, but it ended badly. His ex-wife had cheated on him. He'd been hurt, but he was trying to move on. Margaret felt sympathy for Nathan. She told him about Robert, about how hard it had been to lose him. Nathan looked at her with such kindness. "I can't imagine how difficult that must have been," he said. "You must be a very strong woman." Margaret felt something she hadn't felt in years, felt seen. She felt valued. They started meeting regularly. Coffee dates became lunch dates. Lunch dates became dinner dates. Nathan was always a gentleman. He opened doors for her. He complimented her. He told her she was beautiful, intelligent, interesting. Margaret's friends were skeptical. "He's so much younger than you. What does he want?" But Margaret didn't want to hear it. For the first time since Robert's death, she felt alive. In November, 2 months after they met, Nathan told Margaret he loved her. They were having dinner at Margaret's house. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. "Margaret," he said, "I know this might seem fast, but I've never felt this way about anyone. I love you." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Nathan, I'm so much older than you. Why would you love me?" Nathan smiled. "Age is just a number. You're the most amazing woman I've ever met. You're kind. You're smart. You make me laugh. I don't care about age. I care about you." Margaret believed him. She wanted to believe him. And she said, "I love you too." In December 2023, Nathan asked Margaret to marry him. It wasn't a fancy proposal. They were at Margaret's house, watching a movie. During a quiet moment, Nathan turned to her and said, "Margaret, will you marry me?" Margaret was shocked. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Nathan said. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Margaret said yes. Nathan pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring. It was simple, a thin gold band with a small diamond. Nathan slipped it onto Margaret's finger. "It's beautiful," Margaret said, though she noticed the ring was a bit loose. "We can get it resized," Nathan said. Margaret was so happy. She called Sarah that night to tell her the news. Sarah was not happy. "Mom, you barely know this guy. How long have you been dating? 3 months?" 3.5, Margaret corrected. "That's not long enough to know someone," Sarah said. "Have you met his family? His friends?" "He doesn't have family," Margaret said. "His parents are dead, and he's new to Portland, so he's still making friends." Sarah was worried, but Margaret was an adult. Sarah couldn't stop her. What Margaret didn't know was that the ring Nathan gave her cost $40. He'd bought it online, and he had 7 more just like it. In January 2024, Nathan's troubles started. He called Margaret one evening, sounding stressed. "Margaret, I have some bad news. I lost my job." Margaret was shocked. "What happened?" "Budget cuts," Nathan said. "The company let go of half the IT team. I'm looking for a new position, but it might take a while." Margaret felt terrible for him. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Nathan hesitated. "I hate to ask, but I'm short on rent this month. Could you loan me $2,000? Just until I find another job. I'll pay you back, I promise." Margaret didn't hesitate. "Of course. Don't worry about it." She withdrew $2,000 from her savings account and gave it to Nathan. Nathan was so grateful. "Thank you, Margaret. You're a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you." 2 weeks later, Nathan needed money again. His car broke down. Repairs would cost $3,500. "I can't get to job interviews without a car," Nathan said, "but I don't have the money right now." Margaret gave him $3,500. A month later, Nathan's mother was sick. Wait, hadn't he said his mother was dead? When Margaret asked about this, Nathan explained, "I'm sorry, I should have been clearer. My biological mother passed away, but my stepmother, who raised me, is very ill. She needs surgery. Her insurance won't. I need to help her. The surgery cost $10,000. Margaret gave Nathan the money. Margaret's daughter, Sarah, noticed the withdrawals. When she confronted her mother, Margaret defended Nathan. He's going through a hard time, Margaret said. I'm helping him. That's what you do when you love someone. Sarah tried to reason with her. Mom, this doesn't feel right. Why does he keep needing money? Because he's struggling, Margaret said. When you're in a relationship, you support each other. Your father and I did that for each other. Sarah could see her mother wasn't going to listen. By March 2020, Margaret had given Nathan over $47,000. She'd depleted most of her savings. She'd taken out a loan against her house. She was running out of money. But she didn't care. Nathan loved her. He was going to marry her. They were going to build a life together. On March 10th, Nathan called Margaret. I have good news. I got a job offer in Seattle. It's a great opportunity. The only problem is, I need to move there by the end of the month. Margaret's heart sank. Seattle? But that's 2 hours away. I know, Nathan said. But here's what I'm thinking. Why don't you come with me? We can move together. Start fresh. Get married there. Margaret was torn. Leave Portland? Leave her home? But Nathan was her future. Okay, she said. I'll come with you. There's just one thing, Nathan said. The apartment I'm renting requires first month, last month, and a security deposit. It's $8,000 total. Can you help me with that? Once I get my first paycheck, I'll pay you back. Margaret went to the bank the next day. She tried to withdraw $8,000. The teller informed her that her account balance was too low. Margaret checked her statements. She'd given Nathan so much money. She didn't have $8,000 left. She went home, devastated. She called Nathan. I'm sorry, I don't have the money. There was a pause on the other end. Then Nathan said, That's okay. I'll figure something out. But his tone had changed. He sounded cold. Over the next few days, Nathan stopped returning Margaret's calls. Her text messages went unanswered. Margaret panicked. Had she upset him? Was he angry that she couldn't give him the money? On March 14th, Margaret called Nathan one last time. This time, he answered. Nathan, please talk to me, Margaret said. What's wrong? Nathan sighed. Margaret, I think we need to take a break. A break? Why? I need some space. This relationship is moving too fast. I'm not ready for marriage. Margaret felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her. But you proposed to me. You said you loved me. I do care about you, Nathan said. But I think I made a mistake. I'm sorry. And then he hung up. Margaret sat in her living room staring at her phone. She looked down at the engagement ring on her finger. She realized she'd been a fool. Margaret spent the next 24 hours in a fog. She didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She replayed every moment with Nathan in her mind. Had he ever loved her? Or had it all been a lie? She looked at her bank statements. Over $47,000 gone. Her savings, which Robert had worked so hard to build, gone. She felt ashamed, stupid, worthless. On the evening of March 15th, Margaret went to her medicine cabinet. She had prescription sleeping medication. She had pain medication left over from a surgery years ago. She made a terrible decision that night. Then she went to the bathroom and sat on the floor. She thought about Robert. She thought about her children. She thought about Nathan. She closed her eyes. The next thing she knew, she was in a hospital bed. Sarah was sitting next to her, crying. When Margaret told Sarah about Nathan, Sarah immediately called the police. Detective Brian Foster was assigned to the case. He'd worked fraud cases for 15 years. He'd seen this type of scam before. Romance scams targeting vulnerable, lonely people, usually elderly women. Detective Foster ran a background check on Nathan Cole. The name was real, but the story wasn't. Nathan Cole was 34 years old. He'd been arrested twice before for fraud. He'd served 6 months in jail in 2019. He'd been released on probation. Nathan didn't work in IT. He didn't have a job at all. His entire life was scamming women. Detective Foster dug deeper. He found that Nathan had rented apartments under different names. He had multiple phone numbers. He had a system. On March 18th, Detective Foster and his team went to Nathan's apartment. They arrested him. When they searched the apartment, they found the evidence. 8 engagement rings, all cheap, all identical to the one Nathan had given Margaret. A notebook with 12 names, phone numbers, and dollar amounts. Margaret Sullivan was listed with $47,200 next to her name. Other names on the list had amounts ranging from $5,000 to $60,000. One woman, Patricia Green, had given Nathan $82,000 over the course of a year. Detective Foster contacted the other women on the list. Some of them had reported Nathan to the police but hadn't been able to prove anything. Others were too embarrassed to come forward. One woman had died, natural causes, but her family suspected the stress from being scammed had contributed. Nathan Cole was charged with multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. Nathan's trial began in July 2024. Margaret was called to testify. She sat in the witness chair, looking frail and tired. She was asked to explain her relationship with Nathan. Margaret described how they met, how he'd made her feel, how he'd proposed. The prosecutor asked, "Did Nathan Cole ever tell you he—" "Yes," Margaret said quietly. "Did you believe him?" Margaret paused. Then she said, "Yes, I believed him." The prosecutor showed the jury the notebook with the 12 names. He showed the 8 engagement rings. He showed bank records proving that Nathan had deposited Margaret's money into his own accounts and spent it on clothes, electronics, and trips. Nathan's defense lawyer argued that Nathan had genuinely cared for these women, that he'd fallen on hard times and needed help, that the relationships were real, even if they ended badly. But the evidence was overwhelming. Nathan had targeted vulnerable women. He'd lied about his job, his family, his intentions. He'd taken their money and disappeared when they had nothing left to give. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found Nathan Cole guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Margaret did not attend the sentencing. She was too weak, both physically and emotionally. After the crisis on March 15th, Margaret's children decided she couldn't live alone anymore. Sarah and her husband found a care facility for Margaret. It was a nice place. Clean, safe, staff members who were kind. But Margaret hated it. She felt like she was being punished. Sarah visited her mother every week. She tried to comfort her. "Mom, it wasn't your fault. He was a con artist. He targeted you." But Margaret couldn't accept that. Because if Nathan had never loved her, then what did that say about her? That she was so unlovable that a man could only pretend? Margaret refused to take off the engagement ring, even though she knew it was fake, even though she knew Nathan had given the same ring to other women. She wore it every day. Sarah asked her once, "Mom, why do you still wear that ring?" Margaret looked down at her hand. The ring was loose. It slipped around on her finger. "Because," Margaret said, "for a little while, I believed someone loved me, and I don't know if I'll ever feel that again." Sarah struggled with guilt. She'd known something was wrong. She'd warned her mother, but she hadn't pushed hard enough. "I should have called the police sooner," Sarah told Detective Foster during one of their conversations. "I should have forced her to listen." Detective Foster shook his head. "You did what you could. When people are in these situations, they don't want to believe they're being scammed. Your mother wanted to believe Nathan loved her. That's a powerful thing." Sarah asked the question that haunted her. "Do you think he ever cared about her at all? Even a little bit?" Detective Foster had been a cop for 20 years. He'd seen a lot of terrible things. He'd learned not to give people false hope. "Honestly," he said, "no, I don't think he did. People like Nathan, they're very good at pretending, but it's all an act. They're looking for victims, not partners." Sarah cried. "She gave him everything, her money, her trust, and he just threw her away." "I know," Detective Foster said. and that's why he's going to prison. Before sentencing, Nathan was given a chance to make a statement. He stood in the courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked at the judge. He didn't look at Margaret, who wasn't there, or at the families of the other women he'd scammed. "I want to apologize," Nathan said. "I made mistakes. I hurt people. I'm sorry for that." But his apology felt empty, rehearsed. The prosecutor asked him a question. "Mr. Cole, did you love any of the women you were involved with?" Nathan hesitated. Then he said, "I cared about them." "That's not what I asked. Did you love them?" Nathan didn't answer. The judge spoke. "Mr. Cole, you have preyed on vulnerable women. You have exploited their loneliness, their trust, their hope. You have taken their money and left them emotionally devastated. Some of these women may never recover. One of them nearly died because of what you did to her. You have shown no genuine remorse. The court sentences you to 8 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary." Nathan was led away. He never looked back. It's now March 2025, 1 year after the crisis. Margaret still lives in the care facility. Her health has declined. The emotional trauma took a toll. She's on medication for depression. She rarely leaves her room. Sarah visits every Sunday. She brings flowers. She brings books. She tries to get her mother to talk, to engage, to live. But Margaret is a shadow of who she used to be. One Sunday, Sarah brings her mother's favorite dessert, apple pie. They sit together in the facility's small dining area. Sarah tries to make conversation. "Mom?" Michael called. "He's planning to visit next month." Margaret nods but doesn't respond. Sarah tries again. "The weather's getting warmer. Maybe we could take a walk in the garden." Margaret looks out the window. Then she says quietly, "Do you think he ever thought about me after he left?" Sarah knows who she's talking about. Nathan. "I don't know, Mom," Sarah says honestly. Margaret touches the ring on her finger. She still wears it. "Sometimes I think maybe he did love me," Margaret says. "Just a little bit. Maybe at the beginning." Sarah wants to scream. She wants to shake her mother and make her see the truth. But she knows it won't help. Because Margaret doesn't want the truth. The truth is too painful. The truth is that Nathan never loved her, that it was all a lie, that she gave away nearly $50,000 to a man who saw her as nothing more than a mark. Margaret would rather live with the fantasy that maybe, just maybe, there was some real feeling there. Sarah reaches across the table and takes her mother's hand. "I love you, Mom," she says. Margaret squeezes her hand. "I know, sweetheart." But Sarah knows it's not the same. Sarah is her daughter. That love is expected. Margaret wants to believe that someone chose to love her, that she was special to someone, and Nathan took that from her. After Nathan's sentencing, Detective Foster closed the case. But he thought about it often. He thought about Margaret and the other women. He thought about how easy it had been for Nathan to manipulate them. In an interview with a local newspaper, Detective Foster was asked what people could do to protect themselves from romance scams. "Be cautious," he said. "If someone you just met starts asking for money, that's a red flag. If they're much younger or much older than you and they claim to be in love after just a few weeks, that's a red flag. If they have constant emergencies that require financial help, that's a red flag." The reporter asked, "But how do you tell the difference between someone who genuinely needs help and someone who's scamming you?" Detective Foster thought about that. "It's hard, because scammers are very good at what they do. They make you feel special. They make you feel needed. And when you're lonely, when you haven't felt loved in a long time, you want to believe them." He paused, then continued. "The best advice I can give is this. Real love doesn't ask for money. Real love doesn't create constant crises. Real love is patient. If someone is rushing you, pressuring you, making you feel like you have to prove your love by giving them money, that's not love. That's manipulation." The reporter asked one final question. "Do you think Margaret Sullivan will ever recover?" Detective Foster was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I hope so. But honestly, I don't know. When someone breaks your heart, and steals your life savings. That's a double trauma. Some people can come back from that, others never do. Nathan Cole is currently serving his 8-year sentence at Oregon State Penitentiary. He'll be eligible for parole in 2029. Margaret Sullivan is 69 years old. She still lives in the care facility. Her savings are gone, her trust is gone, but she's alive. Sarah visits every week. Michael visits when he can. They're trying to help their mother heal, but some wounds don't heal. Some betrayals cut too deep. Margaret still wears the ring. The cheap $40 ring that Nathan gave her. The ring he gave to at least 7 other women. When Sarah asks why she won't take it off, Margaret always gives the same answer. Because for a little while, I was happy, and I need to remember that feeling. The case is closed. Nathan was convicted. Justice, in a legal sense, was served. But here's what remains. Did Nathan ever have any genuine feeling for Margaret? Or was every smile, every "I love you," every tender moment completely calculated? Margaret believes there was something real. She has to believe it, because the alternative, that she was nothing but a target, a wallet to be emptied, is too full to accept. Sarah knows the truth. The detectives know the truth. Nathan probably knows the truth, but Margaret chooses to believe the lie, because sometimes the lie is easier to live with than the truth. And that might be the cruelest part of Nathan's crime. He didn't just steal Margaret's money. He didn't just break her heart. He made her question whether anyone could ever truly love her, and that's a wound that may never heal.